sound's not on. John?
Is mine?
Oh, mine must be, oh, there it is.
That looks good. That one's not on either.
That's on?
No. It goes, yeah.
Oh, that one goes on and off.
It's nice we can spread.
Slide that so this,
Well, it's gotta be on.
There.
There it goes.
thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you pledge allegiance? Oh, sorry. I call the May 11th regular meeting to order. Lieutenant, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call. Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Here.
Cease?
Here.
Osenga?
Here.
McClure?
Here.
Bachlan?
Present.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. I want to thank the public again for following our virtual protocols and procedures outlined. And Madam Clerk, I know that you'll have some comments that you will be reading, and then I'm not sure if you have folks that you'll be calling on the phone or not. So
Right.
I'll turn it over to you, please.
So we have a combination tonight of reading, mostly reading. I'm going to run a timer for 36 minutes, and I'm going to run the individual timer for 3 minutes.
Okay.
The first citizen comment is from Vernon Willett. I am writing to you to express my concern for the recent and rapid turnovers of 2 more staff positions. It has been reported that the new finance director has been fired right in the middle of the annual audit. Moreover, I have read that this audit is the first in many years not to be conducted by a firm handpicked by the former finance director. Even more, that the City of Seward's investment accounts are under the control of 2 brothers and that the accounts are not regularly audited, a regularly audited item. In this case, an audit should at minimum include an accounting of how much money was expended and to what entities. If all these things are true, I beg you to conduct a thorough investigation by agents responsible only to you. It has long appeared that the city manager was either incompetent or corrupt. He tolerates an absolutely toxic environment in the electric department, a police force which chooses not to enforce city code, a rogue finance department, and other phenomena which you can discover by the simple expedient of talking to the employees. The situation in the electric department alone is sufficient grounds to fire the city manager along with the electric utilities manager and most especially the electric utilities supervisor. The electric manager is personable enough, but he is terrified of confrontation, so he hired an attack dog to protect him. Since hiring the electric supervisor, whose only qualification was his Marine service for fierceness, to the uninitiated, the electric manager has not made a single decision about the running of his department without the electric supervisor's permission. It was the electric supervisor who took the heat for his and for the electric manager's incompetence. They spend money like sailors and then spend more to be sure you do not know what they spend it on. It is mostly fines and penalties for late or improper filing of federal and state permits. One of these days, FERC is going to shut us down, but the electric manager is personable. The electric supervisor is just vicious. I see he drove off another field engineer on Friday. How long is that nasty man going to be allowed to sow hate and discord in your city government? How bad does it have to get to make a 66-year-old man look for a new job? It was that bad or worse. Good Lord, the entrapment, the constant harassment, the sneaking about, the personal hygiene, and on top of that, he carries a 45 much of the time. Honestly, this is who you want to represent Seward. Because it is your city government, they are making a hissing and an edema. You are the elected officials. You have the responsibility to ensure your city manager should I stop or continue?
No, we'll keep to the time limit, please.
Okay. Next comment is from Rebecca Ivy. My name is Rebecca Ivy, and I live outside city limits, and I'm a former employee of the city. I first was hired in the police department and then moved to the electric department. In all my years, I've never seen a department so poorly managed. I do not want to speak only about my personal experience, but how the ratepayers are throwing away our hard-working dollars. In my years of working for the department, I endured workplace violence and corruption more times than I can count. I was forced to lie to customers, bullied by coworkers and supervisors, lied to and defamed. I had papers thrown in my face, was told to F off, and was screamed and yelled at by colleagues, all while my manager watched it happen. I was forced to go on FMLA for my mental health because of pain I had endured while working for the city. I fought hard to help my fellow coworkers join the union in hopes that things would get better. The only relief I found was leaving the city after almost 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. The current electric department manager has been working for the city since 2009, and our system has not improved. Loss of power factor is not a new concept for the electric department. The meter reader used to give the pertinent information to the manager so it could be fixed and penalized per code for poor factor, and neither are currently being done. The electric department has known for well over 10 years of the abusers of said power factor, and no changes have been made. Per the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the average line loss as a transmission line is 5%. The city is more than triple the national average. The manager has been aware of this since he has started, and yet again, no change. We as ratepayers continue to pay for the lack of guidance from our manager. The policy for demand meters took well over a year for the manager to write and submit. And how long did council ask for an interconnect policy that actually made sense to users of the system? Last year, the city paid almost $30,000 for an excavator to clear the transmission line, and due to improper management, the crew was only able to use it for 3 to 4 weeks. For years, the manager has been working on a pole attachment agreement with the communication companies, and to my knowledge, it has not been finalized. The crews have had a lack of training, proper equipment to do the job safely. For instance, they are not current on pole top rescue and had to file a grievance to receive flame retardant policy and gear to keep up with OSHA standards. I believe just recently the city was cited approximately $35,000 in fines from OSHA due to the mismanagement and lack of knowledge to run a department. IBEW. Thank you. Okay. Next is a call out to Linda Pocket.
Hello.
Linda, hi, this is Grande. I'm going
Hi.
to start the clock and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hi, Mayor Terry and council members, Linda Paquette outside city limits, and also PACAD City Commissioner. Great to see you all sitting there. Today we have had, tonight you have 3 executive sessions on the agenda, including the city manager's evaluation. And I wanted to spend just a few minutes remembering how we got here and ask you to reconsider with some hindsight your situation. The tapes from the meetings with the consulting firm are on the Sewer Civic Engagement page on Facebook, and I'd suggest if you're not on council at the time, or even if you were, you might want to go back and watch or listen to those. What council said at the time was that they wanted professionalism, they wanted transparency, honesty, an adult in the room. Those were just a few of the terms that were used. There was a lot of talk about the unrest between citizens and the city administration and the employees. And the firm you provided you several candidates, and in the end you were not able to hire your first choice. There was discussion about going back out and looking some more, but you absolutely rushed the situation because it was April and there was a lot of fear about summer, and they didn't want, the sitting council didn't want the existing staff to have to deal with it. Not that they couldn't handle it probably, but more that they didn't want to overburden them. You know, the summer alone is busy, and then 4th of July on top of that, and they already all had other jobs. So now you have that time, though. Now you have that time. Here we are, not quite a year later, maybe a little more than a year later, and you have that time. So I suggest you really consider how you want to move forward. While there were staff and citizens both who didn't, oh wait, I skipped a sentence here. It won't be busy this summer, and it looks like we have the exact same problems that we were having before you got your interim city manager. And while the interim city manager wasn't necessarily liked by everyone, he was respected, and he earned that respect with his professionalism. So you might want to ask yourselves a couple of questions. If Mr. Bridges was still here, where would Seward be? Has your current city manager accomplished what you wanted? And where do you see this current city manager taking you? Because from the ongoing problems in multiple city departments, what appear to be questionable staffing situations, it appears many citizens and employees that we're back to the same place, the old administration. It's as if the faces have changed and that's it. So, and how the previous administration is still involved in what's going on is really, you really need to look at that. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Thank
Was that
you.
myself?
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. Bye.
Next on the list is Elliot Jackson. Where to begin? Since starting my first business in this town, it has been a difficult journey. If you are in business for yourself here, it feels like you work for the city of Seward, and not that the city works for either its citizens or small business owners. I was born and raised by business owners here in the state of Alaska, and other parts of the state treat business owners like valuable members of the community. Prior to doing business in Seward, I owned multiple rental units in Anchorage. It was by far much easier to do business there than it is here. I would not suggest people starting a business in Seward under current city management. It's extremely difficult. This is a shame since this town is so beautiful and people like myself are working hard to make improvements on the old rundown properties. Most of the 9 businesses we have bought in this town were all worn out and run down by previous owners. All of our profits have gone back into improvements to our businesses over the past 12 years to make them a better place to experience. We strive to repair things that have been neglected for decades, and the city makes it as difficult as possible for us to accomplish these improvements with all their red tape. It has gotten to the point where our newest venture is intentionally outside of city limits because we no longer desire to be treated this way. This newest business venture is estimated to bring in potentially $5 million annual revenue dollars, and the city of Seward will miss out on all the associated sales tax because it is too difficult to do business within city limits. I question whether or not several department heads are qualified to do their jobs. There are at least 4 to 5 people that don't seem to know what they are doing. The head of the electric department seems to be the most incompetent. However, the incompetence pretty much spreads across that entire building, all the way to the city manager. My education, MBA, and experience that this town is not properly at all. Why did most of our city employees have the last 2 months off with pay? Is this a joke? Work from home, my beat. I did not receive one correspondence from email from 3 different departments for 4 weeks. Trying to work with the city has gotten so bad that we've had to hire a lawyer again to fight the city. It should not take lawyers to fight with your city to get business done. It's the job of the city to provide us with service. Next signed in is Brad Entwistle. As a resident of Seward for over 30 years and co-owner of a small business, I would like to respectfully request the reconsideration of Resolution 20-034 and the City of Seward's collaboration with the Alaska Railroad for freight dock expansion. I would like to support the freight dock expansion. However, I cannot in good conscience advocate for an agreement that would potentially leave Seward locals out in the cold. I fear the ongoing problem that we are currently having with out-of-state residents taking local jobs on the docks will continue to get worse. Therefore, I propose a work session involving all parties affected before any such decision is made on the matter in order to better inform the community of potential impact. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Next is, we have 23 minutes left. Next is Melody Jordan. I would like to take this opportunity to comment on two topics of great concern. The Alaska Railroad Grant Application Partnership with the City of Seward could be a very good thing for both parties as long as the City of Seward does not bear the burden of undue costs with no reward. Let's not move at such a fast pace that we do not understand the entirety of the grant partnership and what that may tell us about our future 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Are we doing the right thing for our community in the long run? I certainly support the Alaska Railroad and what it contributes to our community, but I also understand it is a state of Alaska corporation with protections as such, i.e. does not pay property tax. I think we should at least ensure our community and its citizens will benefit and not the contrary. I would expect there could be point included. And number two, I am disappointed to hear of the removal of the finance director, especially at such a critical juncture. What I've heard is indeed secondhand. I do not have a full first-hand accounting of the situation. What I do have firsthand is that she is a fair and supportive supervisor, expects everyone to do their best job, and is well qualified for the position. That said, I would expect she is treated fairly and has not been wrongfully dismissed. I have seen time and time again this has not been the case in several city departments, and I have said time and time again there needs to be an impartial and competent human resource department. Impartial and competent. I don't know if I misspoke. In general, I have some concerns where our city is heading, notwithstanding the COVID-19 pandemic. A firm at SMIC brought a crew of 20 to 25 workers in on a barge out of Seattle to do a load of freight. They took that work away from local workers and their families at a time when work and salaries are more important than ever. I am concerned for our country, our state, but first and foremost, we must take care of our local citizens. This firm is not an Alaska-based company. Quite frankly, I am sick and tired of the good old boys mentality, and to see it played here, negatively impacting our local folks, is just wrong. That said, I am sure this firm may rent some cars, hotels, B&B rooms, buy some nuts and bolts, etc., but nothing compared to what they recently took away in terms of wages and income for many families. You may have heard that Seward Elementary will not be able to fund a librarian or music teacher for the next school year. From what I understand, this is due to the decline in the number of students expected to be enrolled. I know of several families with elementary-age children that have left Seward due to lack of employment and or the cost of living. What the city does or does not do to support its population has a direct trickle-down effect on all of us that live here. Next up is Jessie Gruman. As a 39-year lifelong resident of Seward and a member of ILWU Unit 60, I would like to respectfully request you reconsider Resolution 20-034 due to it being passed without full consideration and input by the community. At this time, a Seattle-based company has brought 20 to 30 people from the greater Washington area currently residing in bunkhouses, getting ready to displace 31 local men and women from work. They are able to undercut Alaska-based companies using local hires by not paying area standard wages and benefits with a complete disregard for safety protocols. I believe the real reason the Alaska Railroad is seeking this grant and support of the city to expand the freight dock is so they have somewhere to put the cruise ships while they build a new cruise ship terminal, one which they are potentially partnering with a company whose sole purpose is to get every last dollar from all passengers before they leave the terminal. It will be lined with gift and souvenir shops that they will walk past on their way to the bus that will drive them directly out of town, deterring them from spending money in any of Seward's local shops. ILWU Unit 60 has roots in the city of Seward dating back to 1936. For over 80 years, we have employed local men and women providing decent wages and benefits for local Alaskans and their families. Our organization as a whole continues to give back to local communities all over the world. Unit 60 of Seward is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. We donate to the Little League and Seward Sports Association, softball team, the Booster Club, and the Walk for Hope. We organize fundraisers for the Boys and Girls Club, in addition to sponsoring Seward High School travel programs. This is just a few of the things we do to support our community. As you can see, we are fully invested in Seward and its future. Myself and Unit 60 as a whole would like to support the positive growth of Seward and our community in any way, including the freight dock expansion, but we cannot support something that will potentially take away local jobs and harm our community's local business. These are just a few reasons I believe we should have a work session on the matter of the freight dock expansion. It would ensure the city council and residents of Seward have all the facts presented, giving everyone a better understanding of the full impact to the community before making a decision. Next up is Chuck Wynn. It has come to the attention of ILWU Unit 60 that the Alaska Railroad has requested collaboration with the City of Seward through the Alaska Railroad 2020 Port and Infrastructure Development Program to apply for a grant requesting federal money to expand the existing freight dock at the Alaska Railroad facility in Seward. Unit 60 recommends that the City of Seward not participate in this collaboration and actively oppose the grant request for the following reasons. The Alaska Railroad has been directly managing the Seward cruise ship dock, freight dock, and coal dock for the last 20 to 30 years. During that time, they have been actively promoting business without any regard to local labor standards. They cater to flash-in-the-pan Seattle barge companies and out-of-town construction companies, which bring labor from out of town and even outside of the state of Alaska, which then take their wages and business profits with them when they leave. Even foreign companies from China and around the globe are allowed to pit local labor forces against each other in efforts to drive down our area standards. The Alaska Railroad then takes a neutral position regarding labor employment practices by these companies as it continually manages the day-to-day operations. The Alaska Railroad has allowed the cruise ship dock to deteriorate and outlive its life expectancy without future funding for a replacement. All coal business has ceased, and that dock has essentially been mothballed because it was built as a single-use facility. Now the Alaska Railroad has put out an RFP requesting a new operator of the cruise ship dock. With that RFP process, did the Alaska Railroad require any of the potential new operators to maintain local area labor standards, encourage hiring local labor, or be required to build a facility that can be used for other industries in the future? If COVID-19 has taught us anything, it is that industry can change in the blink of an eye. Building docks that can only accommodate a single industry is extremely myopic. The Alaska Railroad is attempting to secure federal grant funding to expand the freight dock in order to accommodate cruise ships so that the new operator of the dock can have time to rebuild the cruise dock. Again, without any consideration of local area labor standards or hiring or consideration of future industries. ILWU Unit 60 would like to look forward for a collaboration between ILWU, Alaska Railroad, City of Seward, in order to expand and grow the Port of Seward and the Alaska Railroad facility. Unit 60 has been negotiating living wages and benefits for longshoremen in the Seward area for more than 75 years, which in turn directly supports the community we live in. We take these area standards that have been set over the years and the long-term needs. Okay. We have 15 minutes left. Next is Jeremy Walker. My name is Jeremy Walker. I live outside city limits, so I'm writing to urge the council to please reconsider their vote to partner with the railroad in the freight dock expansion project. I strongly believe that before any action is taken, there needs to be an open discussion between the community, the council, and the railroad. This will give the public a chance to voice any questions or concerns. Thank you for your consideration. Next is Casa Grande. I am speaking today in reference to what I feel is a lack of professional management currently in the city of Seward. In my experience and interactions with the city manager, I conclude the city manager is not a professional and not an honest man. I will save you all from what he said, she said of all my personal events because you were all fortunate enough to witness firsthand how he treats me. I am referring to the last meeting I stood at the podium and spoke regarding the airport. Each one of you watched firsthand how your employee treated me that day. His behavior was unacceptable. The city manager obviously walked out that night in the middle of my comments because he felt comfortable disrespecting me, even in public. I have been nothing but kind, forgiving, and respectful. It was obvious in the body language and facial expressions that were displayed during my comments that the city manager did not enjoy listening to what I was saying. And when I emailed him that evening to tell him I did not intend to offend him, he responded that he left because of a text he received. In replaying the footage, this is untrue, and the city manager should have waited until my comments were complete to exit. This is what a kind and professional human would have done. In the short time your employee has been working for you, there has been an alarming amount of turnover of important positions. Field engineer, executive liaison, assistant city manager, finance director, human resources. This turnover shows your employee is lacking strong management skills. Again, we have lost a highly qualified field engineer due to the lack of management and bullying that persists in the electric department. The recent termination of finance director in the middle of an audit is completely unacceptable. Seward lost a valuable opportunity due to the actions of your employee. The finance director was hired at the beginning of January 2020 with a resolution that proved Seward had hired the finest of the finest. Now, after only 3.5 months of employment, she is gone. I wonder how many individuals can walk into a new job and within 3.5 months learn a new system, build a relationship with new staff, enter into an audit, and endure a world pandemic and not appear to be. I can imagine the employee did not give the support that was needed for the finance director to fully execute her job. Please hire the finance director back as a consultant to for the Seward's reputation and healing of our community. Terminate the contract with the city manager tonight and let GovHR recruit a new manager. In the meantime, consider appointing immediately the mayor as the city's interim city manager until an interim manager can be hired. Council member McClure can act as mayor and do a great job in the meantime. I am thankful for every one of you, and I know the decisions you need to make this evening are not going to be easy. It is time, Seward. Please choose what is best for the citizens and the business owners. Next is Dennis Young. ILWU Alaska Longshore Division has been made aware of Alaska Railroad Corporation has filed or is intending to file a grant request with the Maritime Administration Port Infrastructure Development Program for the Alaska Railroad Terminal Facility located in Seward. Alaska Railroad has requested the City of Seward support this effort, which ILWU Alaska Longshore Division respectfully recommends the City of Seward not support until the railroad proves to the city that all terminal cargo related operations meet Alaska area standards for longshore work. ILWU understands the importance of port development and infrastructure improvements and generally would be supportive of such efforts were we as a workforce making our living, but the Alaska Railroad does not ensure that the Alaska area standards providing good wages and benefits to the members of ILWU Unit 60 Seward have established for over 75 years, affecting over 200 local families will be protected. We respectfully request that the City Council establish a working committee before any agreement of support that includes council members, railroad representative, labor representative, trade industry representative, including local cruise-related business, transportation, and stevedore, to better determine how the railroad terminal in Seward collaboratively benefits the community moving forward. This would ensure that the community has an active say in the direction of the Port of Seward moves forward as a neighbor within the City of Seward. The railroad should embrace this opportunity to be a good neighbor. While we understand the railroad believes it is imperative to receive PIDP funding for terminal improvements during the 2020 cycle, this funding is available on an annual basis per the grant application process, thereby not making this a one-time shot to receive funding. Delaying terminal improvements will not prevent any of the current users the ability to utilize the railroad terminal at this time. Next is, I need to call out to Jim Lubitz.
This is Jim.
Jim, hi, it's Brenda Blue, the city clerk, and you are on speakerphone. Are you ready for your comments?
I certainly am. I just ran in from the kitchen.
Okay, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Yeah, I understand. I'll try to be quick. I just know that council is looking at a motion to reconsider after Resolution 2034 passed last week, and I totally understand, some of the issues there. I sent a letter. I'm not sure if it's been read into the record yet or if you had copies of it, but I sent a letter just kind of addressing some of the issues that were swirling around this, I think, and tried to answer some of the questions. But, the bottom line to us is that we really want to do this freight dock, and we've partnered with the City of Seward many times on these issues, and I hope you'll consider supporting us again. It's a joint application that we put in. You may know the numbers. It's a $25 million project, and the railroad is putting up $4.8 million, which is the most we've ever put up cash to support a project like this. And what's going on, it was tough to kind of keep for a while. I had to fight for it, but we really believe in doing this, and we know the effort of a combined effort of the City of Seward and the Alaska Railroad will make this a very strong application. We really hope to get this grant, so I hope you'll consider supporting and keeping Resolution 2034. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Good night. Next signed in is Andrew Donovan. Thank you for the chance to address you once again regarding Resolution 20-034, authorizing a joint application to the PIDP grant program for the expansion of the Seward Terminal Reserve and extension of Port Avenue. This is a great opportunity for both the City of Seward and the Alaska Railroad to support economic development for the local community and the state of Alaska. The City of Seward and Alaska Railroad have had a long and productive relationship for over 100 years. Part of that relationship has been the open status of the railroad's dock facilities. The railroad owns Seward Terminal Reserve. The terminal, which includes passenger freight and coal export docks, is open for business to all who are qualified and insured by contract, as are many other dock facilities in Alaska, including the Smith facility owned by the City of Seward. As a public entity, the Alaska Railroad does not dictate pay rates and benefits provided by qualified operators. What we do is ensure that the dock is open for all commerce that is permitted by local, state, and federal law by those qualified operators. The expansion of the freight dock is the main priority of this grant, but it is important to look at all three Alaska docks as a single entity together for the greatest benefit of customers and the community. Following the 1964 earthquake, the current passenger dock was built as a multi-use dock in 1966. It was built with steel pilings and had a projected useful life of 40 to 50 years. Since it was built, the Alaska Railroad has poured significant funds into the maintenance of that facility. Over just the last 10 years, we've been spending upwards of $1 million a year to keep it safe and operational, while at the same time exploring numerous options for its eventual replacement. The cruise ship industry has grown to be the largest customer at the terminal, and in order to continue and grow that business, the Alaska Railroad worked extensively with the City of Seward to develop a replacement plan. The current freight dock was built in 1999 using federal grants similar to the one your resolution proposes to join. It was constructed because of the growth in both the freight and passenger industry in Seward, which was starting to see many days of full docks, particularly in the summer passenger season. As they exist today, neither the freight dock nor the passenger dock are single-use facilities. There are many times when a freight customer will be tied up at the passenger dock, either for unloading or waiting to be moved to the freight dock. Similarly, plans for the busy days of the 2020 summer passenger season, when multiple passenger ships make call in Seward, including cruise ships to be tied up on both sides of the dock, while a third could be waiting for the freight dock. Future plans for these docks will expand their use for their respective industries, safeguarding the ability to offer more options, not fewer, for customers. We have 2 left and 5 minutes exactly.
Okay, well, let's read through. Unless there's any objections from council, we'll do 2. You can, even if they go to the 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can
each.
finish them.
Okay,
Okay, by looking at them.
thank you.
Okay. So from Valerie Winsland, I am writing as a citizen, but am also an employee of the City of Seward. My words are my own and written in my own time. City manager has provided leadership and stability with integrity and has been a role model for listening and responding compassionately without compromising our mission, especially during unprecedented circumstances and under extreme pressure. This doesn't mean I always agree with his decisions, but I understand he has to take into account a much broader picture and has to make difficult decisions with that broad picture in mind. I respect his ability to keep the best interest of Seward in mind when making those decisions. I am dismayed at the continued division and strife among our community leaders, often fueled by heresy. I was told when I started working for the city that perception is truth, even if it wasn't actually true, and the other side of the story couldn't be told. This is part of the burden of being a public servant. I thank the city manager for giving department heads permission to share our opinions and have input on major decisions, something we haven't always been allowed to do. This sort of trust speaks volumes to me and should to you as well. I am concerned that harder times will be upon us. Please focus on working together, serving our community, and supporting those of us who have dedicated ourselves to this service. And the last comment is from Carol Griswold. I hope you received my email on the reconsideration of Resolution 20-035 sent to you through the city clerk on Friday. A lot has changed in the 3 years since the railroad finalized its Seward Terminal Reserve Master Plan. Catastrophic changes occurred this year when the cruise ship industry collapsed due to the pandemic. The industry's future, especially for the planned megaships, is far from certain. Yet the plan still includes massive changes to Port Avenue, extending it to intersect with Airport Road, where there's a hazardous railroad crossing, restricted highway, no room for merge or turn lanes, faster speed limit, and limited visibility at the 3 bridges. There are no details on how this will be engineered or how the city will be involved in any planning. The grant obligates the city to beautify and sign Port Avenue for the cruise ship pedestrians that no longer exist. It suggests using the CPV excise tax. CPV can now only be used to fund infrastructure that directly supports the ships. Even the legality of collecting CPV is being challenged. Without this funding source, how much will this obligation cost the city in staff time and supplies? The Alaska Railroad wants the city to provide $0.6 million of gravel using city equipment and staff to fill wetlands on their property. There are no details on how many cubic yards this entails. What happens if Lowell Creek fails to deliver adequate gravel when needed? The actual cost to city equipment for dredging, stockpiling, and hauling, and hours of staff time. We may be obligated to subcontract the work at our expense if we can't meet the demand. This plan is obsolete and needs to be significantly updated with details and realistic fiscal notes before Seward agrees to be a partner. Please vote to reconsider this resolution and postpone. And that concludes citizen comments.
Did she, yes, with Carol Griswold's letter, did she say 2035 or 2034?
20-034.
Okay, I thought you said 30.
Did I misspeak?
I don't know.
Apologize if I did.
Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
I have one change before I turn it over to the council. If there's no objection under executive sessions, I want to move item C to actually be item A. So we'll take up what's the current item C and then subsequently do a B, C. So it would be going to executive session to evaluate the city manager first and then the other two executive sessions. Madam Clerk, do we need a vote on that, or is that if there's no
Not if
objections?
there's no objection.
I object, but I'll let it go to a vote.
Okay. Well, I'll move to move item C and have that be the new A, and then the next two be subsequent, the B and C.
I'll second that.
I guess the reason why I'm doing that, I'll just speak to my motion, then I'll let you speak, Councilmember Baclan, is I definitely want to make sure that we have adequate time for the executive session with evaluating the city manager, and then I'm hoping that some of the personnel questions can be done through the evaluation process. I do, however, want to leave the other two executive sessions on the agenda in case they're still needed when we're done with the city manager evaluation. So that would be my comments. Councilmember Baclan, did you have comments you'd like to make?
No.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Madam Clerk, would you call for the vote, please?
Voting to reorder the executive session. Kreitz?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Baclan?
No.
Osenga?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
So the executive sessions have been reordered.
Thank you. I'll put the agenda back on the floor. Does anyone else have any comments or amendments or changes? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Could you call for the vote, please?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Kreitz?
Yes.
Baclan?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Thank you. Tonight's agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on tonight's consent agenda. Resolution 20-035, extending the city's current state of emergency in response to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and requesting state and federal relief assistance. Also approved is the April 27, 2020 City Council regular meeting minutes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. Under proclamations and award, we have Older Americans Month, which I'm going to count myself one of these and read this proclamation out. Whereas the City of Seward includes a community of older American residents who deserve recognition for their contributions to the local community, and whereas the City of Seward recognizes that older adults are making a mark by advocating for themselves, their peers, and their communities, and by paving the way for future generations. And whereas the City of Seward is committed to raising awareness about issues facing older Americans and assisting all individuals to thrive in the Seward community for as long as possible. And whereas we appreciate the value of inclusion and support in helping older adults successfully contribute to and benefit from their community through support of the Seward Senior Center. And whereas our community provides opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages by promoting and engaging in activity, wellness, and social involvement, emphasizing home and community-based services that support independent living, and ensuring community members can benefit from the contributions and experience of older adults. Now there, I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby proclaim May 2020 to be Older Americans Month, and do urge every resident to take time this month to acknowledge older adults and the people who serve them as powerful and vital individuals who greatly contribute to the community of Seward. Now I know in other times we would probably have Seward Senior Center Director Dana Paperman here. So just want to, recognize her for her work, all her staff. I know that during this time they've been getting meals out to all the seniors that rely on that program. So we're very thankful to have that facility working in Seward. If you have a senior as a neighbor, check in on them and see if they need any groceries delivered so they don't have to go to the grocery store. So next on the agenda is Borough Assembly Report. I believe we've seen that, and he will not be here this evening, Madam Clerk?
Correct. He provided, as a laydown, a short report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions to pass along, or? Okay. Next on the agenda is the City Manager's Report.
I'll take this off.
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard to hear me sometimes. So I want to start out, the first item I have, I sent you a draft community outbreak rules and plan. So that's a reopening item. Our law firm has worked on that, has implemented that around numerous places in the state and utilized that as a template. We would have to have a work session to develop that further, but I sent it to you as like a draft so that you could have input, maybe look through that. Let me know if we decide we want to implement something of that nature. A lot of communities, there's a lot of outreach and pressure to do that, so that if we have caseloads and kind of go backwards, what triggers that? How does that look? So that outlines that very well. The second item, I have some remarks. It's been a long week for all of us. I want to thank council and mayor. Yes, I am your city manager. It's been 1 year. I started May 1st, 2019. Before I came to you, it's kind of for the public, but I have some new council members here. I was a city manager in Meeker, Colorado. So I'm currently a certified municipal clerk as well as a certified manager. I have 17 years of experience, and until I came here, I've never been told that I was not professional and had no integrity, and never belittled by anyone that I ever worked with. I was valedictorian of my graduate school. And I've also been an elected member in council for a large city, an adjunct professor, a grant administrator, and a budget analyst. So I have a eclectic, strange background that I would hope benefits the small town of Seward. My past year experience dealing with the small faction of reformers, basically disgruntled former employees, most of them have resigned. I just feel like it's inaccurate, unfounded, and tired of being smeared and having the clerk forward this to council. All of us know who they are. I don't call people because that is unprofessional and demeaning and difficult being an elected official. Can't imagine what it's like to be our U.S. Senator right now, but that comes with our work. I do feel like it's correct to say that what you heard tonight does feel like an inappropriate use of our clerk's time to forward that when people can just go to our website. But I feel like keeping confidentiality regarding difficult personnel issues is my job. And when probationary employees have conflicts and issues, it's ironic that when I started, I was told by these same individuals to fire numerous people the first week, and then I get challenged when I terminate someone. Calling myself out and my staff, I also feel it's ironic that I saw no less than 10 or 15 positive emails today, and I heard one. Tonight's executive session, I will be asking openly, I'm stating that for the record, to have council give administration charge of my agenda back. The clerk has added items. My staff is blindsided and doesn't know what's going on or what we have to work on. So that's my first request, and it'll be more detailed than this. The second is that we change council procedures because the clerk's office has requested time, and I think that having people that do smear us email and complain constantly in her office and spending all of that time like you saw this past few items, it's not a good resource, and my job is to work on implementing efficiencies. I know that my team is very honest, capable, and gives a lot, as I feel I do as well. However, continued efforts and practices I've experienced, what you heard earlier tonight, I don't think any of this is positive for Seward moving forward. I think that if we desire to work on those things and focus on that, we do that. We do about 80% of our week on these types of things, which leaves 20% for our workload. I don't feel like that's a place that any of my staff wants to be. I know that I'm a contract employee, and if you look at the events tonight that you're going to hear later, I'm a contract employee. So if you would like to find someone you think is going to do a better job, I think Steve would quit calling me and wonder how it's going here. So I don't want to give ultimatums because I've seen where that goes for management, but I think it's hard. I've been here for a year, and those of you that have been here that whole year have witnessed a lot of hostile, ugly, integrity questioning things that I have not, other than leaving and going to the bathroom and then leaving the building, to one person that was going off on me. I feel like I've held it together pretty well, and I can say, like Cheryl sat in a meeting where a council member flipped me off and swore at me, and this assistant city manager and her both didn't appreciate that, and I can tell you that I didn't either. So I would say that our problems aren't about the professionalism and the accuracy. I would say it's a treating each other properly issue in this community, and I would like to be one that removes us from continuing down that path. So I am open to ideas of how to restructure that, and I have been in places where I have cleaned these things up. I think tonight will be enlightful for all of us. Thank you.
I have a question to the city attorney. So just checking, because, and I know I sent you an email or text, but my understanding, if emails come into the city clerk to be distributed to council, then she's obligated to distribute those? I mean, that's what it looks like to me in the council rules of procedure.
That is my understanding as well, is that information that's directed to council, it's intended to go to council.
So if it goes, even if it goes through the city clerk, if a member of the public is asking for it to be distributed to council, the clerk can't not distribute it, correct?
That's my understanding, correct.
Okay. And then I do have another question for you. So with the community outbreak rules and plans, you would like input back, and I just want to clarify for council, don't CC the whole council. Send that directly to the city manager so we're not violating any open meetings acts. So those comments can be directed directly back to him. And then one last question, then I'll open it up. So the correctional officer position that's been advertised since 11/29/2018, do you know where that's being advertised?
So I'd ask the lieutenant to speak on that. Do you know where the correctional position? I know it's within the state of Alaska through our association, law enforcement association. Additionally, I don't, off the top of my head, know that.
And I don't either off the top of my head. The state, if I had there's a request that we fill out and we check on there which places we want something advertised. If I had that in front of me, I could tell you.
Okay.
But I don't have it.
Thank you. I should have asked ahead of time. I just noticed it looking through the list tonight, so I didn't mean a gotcha moment. So maybe I'll follow up after where it's being advertised. And I think we need to, maybe problem solve that since it's been advertised for so long, if we're getting applicants or what the issue is, because I know that's been a vacancy. Does anyone else have questions for the city manager? I'll start with the vice mayor.
Well, it's more for Parks and Rec, and we don't have a representative here. But I've been getting questions, and I'm reading their report here too, that pavilion reservations are unavailable. But then also they encourage people, strongly encourage to avoid facilities with high-touch surface areas as they cannot guarantee their sanitization. I've gotten some calls of concern about the pavilion where people are in there, and the question was, is Parks and Rec cleaning the pavilion? And I don't know if you know.
Yeah, Tyler is going to be here this evening. We have several other staff members in the room. But I would answer, we have hired our harbor cleaning crews to do the bathrooms at the facilities for the park, the campgrounds. It's actually cheaper to go through that contract and the PPE and everything than it would be to hire our summer help. The pavilion, we can likely go back to reservations. You couldn't have groups larger than 20. So now that we're going towards 50, that would be something that could be reservable. So I would presume that the reservations we have beyond the certain date will be accepted. We did do a few refunds on those already. The cleaning, it is very bare in there. There's some tables and things, but I will double check on that to make sure we're sanitizing. The fire department was looking at, I'm not sure if we've gotten that, a sanitation machine that basically you put virilization chemicals in and you can actually mist and spray. So we're still working on those avenues to do a more thorough health-related job.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Bacon?
The agenda is by code required by the clerk to prepare, right?
Honestly, the council procedures was changed in February. I know my name is in there, but I didn't start till May 1st. I've been meeting with Holly and several of the previous council to try to get those things changed. The clerk isn't responsible. They disseminate the agenda. So setting the agenda, having a firm date, I mean, we could make that a mayor issue, we could make that a joint issue, but I don't like to have the agenda set Tuesday at noon and then on Thursday there's additional new items. For instance, this time having Tyler have to be here. I know we're not traveling and stuff, but then they have to prepare. Some of these things take additional legal action. It's just kind of it's just a moving target every time we get an agenda of seeing what's on there.
And maybe I'll follow up with the city attorney that we have here. So currently, in our council rules of procedure, council members can put things on the agenda. So if a council member wanted to put something on the agenda, would the clerk be able to stop them from doing that as part of their job?
I haven't looked, I'd have to follow with Holly, I haven't looked at your specific council rules. Typically, the council rules identify the structure for putting things onto the agenda, whether it's 2 council members or something, and I'm not sure what your specific agenda rules are. But typically also there's a procedure that defines when the agenda has to be finalized prior to the meeting. And again, I'm not sure what your specific requirements are, but that sounds like that might be
So Rule 9B says council members who wish to add items to the agenda must present the item in writing to the city clerk no later than 12 p.m. on the Tuesday preceding the Monday meeting. So if that requirement's met, then does the clerk have any latitude to restrict something from being on the agenda?
I'm not the best person to answer. I think I can see circumstances where something wouldn't be appropriate to go on the agenda, but typically if your rules say that they can go on by 12, then they go on. But I think the issue is, when do they have to be on the agenda? When does that agenda have to be published? Even if they've been received by 12 noon, is there any criteria for when that agenda has to be published? That might be a different issue that could be clarified in your procedures.
Well, the publish has to do with the dates with the newspaper.
I meant that's available for people to, whether it's posted online or provided to the public if they request it. I'm trying to understand what the city manager's question is. It sounds like it's an issue of when the agenda gets actually published.
So if we have a deadline, that should be the deadline. It shouldn't be like, oh, by the way, we also have these items and now it's different. I think, several of the council members also like to get that, before Thursday. So
We've never got it before unless
Councilmember Buckland.
Thursday has always been the deadline for that. If it's come out earlier, that's because we've had a lighter agenda. We don't, other than what our compensation is, we have to read that and go through, do our research with the departments, with the city managers as well. We face the same things that you're talking about too, so that we can be educated when we come here to have the right to know what we're talking about.
Precisely, so that's what I'm asking, is to move that up and not get it at the last minute.
But we're also going for the deadline for the agendas being set for the newspaper. So we're dealing with another point that, okay, the agenda was set there. I understand what you're saying, but we all are with the same deadline here. And it has been that way as long as I've been.
So, Councilmember Osenga?
I would just say that I've read through that rule, and there are different, it seems to me like when you read it, it does have the publishing, it has the agenda has to be set by noon on Tuesday or whatever, but there are different things in there that seem to have different deadlines, and I think what they're trying to do is clarify when it should be published, like when it's available for the public before a meeting, that kind of thing is stated in there. But it does have, I've read it a few times, and it does have a deadline in there.
So here's where I'm at. So we are talking about the city manager's report. Later in the meeting, we have the city manager's evaluation.
Sure.
But we're hearing a lot of criticism about the clerk, which just seems like bizarre to me in this situation. So I mean, under your city manager's report, clearly you have your own report in the packet.
Right.
That is part of the city manager's report.
Correct.
And later on in the meeting, we have your evaluation.
Correct.
So I wonder if a lot of this discussion would be better held for your evaluation.
And it will be. I just wanted to make the public aware that that's what I'm going to be asking the council for.
Okay.
Instead of just,
So, and you're saying you're going to have an open evaluation?
no.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
So I just have some questions about the CARE Act, because I was following
Okay.
the AML things, and I know what we should be kind of asking. Has the city been compiling any type of other needs, you know, like obviously the loss in sales tax revenue, any of the other extraneous expenses that have been related to COVID, you know? And is AML working on, like, what should we be doing right now? Should we be trying to get a letter of support to tell our legislatures, to tell the I mean, I guess the meeting was tonight from the, when they're gonna gavel in, yeah, so we'll know after this, but, you know, can we be more proactive on this, and like, is there other things that we could be doing? I've heard of other smaller towns that are buying PPE or helping their small businesses get hand sanitizer, masks, other forms of mitigation that we can be proactively spending money for, because, I'm so sorry, because it would be covered under the costs. And I've been with the mayor, we've also been attending kind of in tandem the chamber meetings, and Cliff from Forest Tides and Treasures is trying to get a large order of PPE, hand sanitizer, disinfectants and stuff. So is there a way that we can, help in a way that we can be the larger purchaser, and then, either distribute or, find businesses that might need assistance in these things because they are directly related to those things?
Sure. So since the outbreak and onset of this, we worked through the Office of Emergency Management at the borough. We have Chief Kreitz is actually the person that 3 times a week at 9 o'clock we do our office updates. All of our staff has been doing data reports, work hours. All of our expenditures related to this have been tracked. So for instance, when we buy masks, when we buy sanitizer, we have put in numerous large requests to the office. It's an issue with Alaska. It's an issue with most of the places in the country. They're not filling those orders that we've requested because of the lack of opportunity to get those supplies here. So I wouldn't speak for the fire chief. He's put in numerous requests. We have really a medical side to things because we do have Providence and we do have the clinic. That's treated a lot differently, even though they have to go through the city with that request. It's treated a lot differently than when we as the city are like, oh, the harbor, some of our private businesses, that's a separate type of an entity. And through the CARES Act, so our lobbyists and our legislators, we're in very close connection with them. They did do numerous things. I don't know if you saw the Senate bill last week where Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski asked that there be a SALT Act attached to the CARES Act, which right now the CARES Act is basically stating AML, and with the direction of Governor Dunleavy, put forth an initiative to allocate money through AML to all the jurisdictions, which many of you may have seen. That did not go through the legislative process. So basically there's a big question as to whether or not any of that's going to even happen, or if it's legal, or they may do that. So if they pass the other legislation that's been requested, that has to go through the entire U.S. Senate and Congress, not just Alaska. If that does pass, we will not be required to do all of the mandates and requests. Right now, all of that money that we were told may come here would have to be justified through the emergency and all of the allocation related to this. It's pretty hard to believe that would happen.
The first round of spending that SALT Act, was that for the 568 million for, or
5.3 million.
billion for municipalities? Okay.
And I think they initially said there were some miscalculations, not with us, but with other places that they didn't quite have the right data through AML. Ours was estimated at 5.3 million, so they would do 3 disbursements. Initially, and if that change in the funding doesn't change, we would have to justify all that to this, which would be really difficult, in which case we could look to other entities like the other entities that we're property owners of and in coordination with, such as Sea Life Center Hospital. If they do pass the act and it doesn't require that, those could be offset with loss of funding. I think there's a big misnomer throughout the nation about that because it simply would replace lost funds, and I think the intention for the act really wasn't that. But if that does come true, roughly we're estimating 28% lost revenue. It's hard to say now that they said there are no cruise ships coming. I don't know. Those are estimates based on forecasts, so it's hard to know if that's accurate.
I just want to clarify for the record, I said 568 billion, it's 568 million. Sorry. And then there was 290 million for small businesses. Was that also through like the Alaska Small Business?
Small Business Administration,
Okay.
There's a lot of different funding mechanisms out there for private. The problem is a lot of those are loans, and a lot of people, there wasn't enough money to fund all of the small business, so a lot of people applied and were told they don't get any funding. Jason is probably a better advocate in our website. I'm not fully up to speed on all the private business pieces. We do have them marketed and advertised on the website though.
One more follow-up.
Go ahead, Councilmember McClung.
On the, that was just like that first initial release of money from the 1.567 billion. And then it was also increasing FAA funding to $49 million for airports. Is there any possibility that we could see anything from that? And are we talking to our lobbyists and, about that?
So it's $49 billion. The local Seward Airport, the Seward Airport got $30,000 through that appropriation. And that was already distributed to the state. That's a state allocation because the state owns our airport. You might have seen it in the news, like some of the bigger airports got like $25 million and 40, like down in the Seattle, and it was very indiscriminate how they did the calculations because it was based on users, and it's a lot of funding, and that is also, just from the news, I know that, Alaska Airlines in the last quarter was a $242 million deficit because they were 10% of business.
So with that CARES Act, I do know that AML is sending out emails, but I think Councilmember McClung, you started that with if there's anything that we need to do as a body. Is there anything right now that you need from us?
So those are all direct appropriations. So if they get distributed, we will get those. We're definitely in coordination with our legislators, and our lobbyists are also funding that. So we're definitely pushing on that and trying to get that done. But I don't think like an additional letter or anything like that is going to help in addition to what we're already doing.
And then just to the city manager, I did notice that your Parks and Rec director came in, maybe perhaps to answer the vice mayor's question, if you'd like.
Sure, absolutely. Do you want to restate that?
Oh, well, I've received several comments from people about use of the pavilion structure, and whether it's being cleaned or not between uses, and so if you could just address that.
Yes, so I think the city manager actually did a pretty good job of summing up where we're at. So while we do currently pick up the garbage and pick up trash from those areas, we are not currently sanitizing those areas. We neither have the staffing nor the supplies necessary to do that at this point. Much like the playgrounds and other facilities. That's why we put that language out there on the website. It's the recognition that we want to strike that balance of encouraging safe use of those facilities and making sure people are aware of the risk inherent to using those facilities, but not having to shut them down entirely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Okay, I had one. Now, the cleaning of the restrooms, how often are those done?
Would you want to talk about that again, Tyler? The Park and Rec restrooms, or
The park and restrooms, how often are they cleaned?
They're cleaned very frequently. I'd have to talk with
I mean, is it every hour, is it once a day, or?
It should be close to basically every hour.
Okay, thank you.
So it's the same schedule as the harbor,
Restaurant.
because it's the same,
Okay.
same firm.
So you know, you don't have to use them, you don't use them. Somebody asked me that though. And then I had one thing for you. You said Scott would quit calling you. Not Scott, Steve. Who's that?
I'm Steve Welch, he's the consultant that did the recruitment up here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
He actually received phone calls from people my first week that wanted me to, I wouldn't fire people, and they're like, oh, we need to get rid of Scott already.
Oh, well, I couldn't, that's been a year ago.
Any Councilmember Butts?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple questions here too, and I don't know if this may be inappropriate this time there too, but I'd like to ask the city manager, have you ever received a report of any city employee besides a peace officer wearing a firearm while working for the city?
So just so that you're aware, our policy allows for the city vehicles in bare areas, so most of our electric department actually travels outside of Seward, and the current policy allows for a firearm in cases in which they're exposed to areas where there are brown bears. We did get an anonymous complaint about employees having weapons. The acting police chief and I acted on that complaint and did a spot inspection. It was unfounded, and then we notified, departments and the staff that, inside our facilities and buildings, you cannot have firearms unless you're a sworn peace officer. So I don't know if the policies can be adopted and changed, but that is our current policy, and John is here if he wants to talk to that, if you have a deeper need to know more about that.
Let me make sure, Councilmember Butts, did you have another question?
I had a couple more other
It's a
questions.
follow-up to that one.
But go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember McClure.
Okay. The firearm could belong to the person, or is that firearm supposed to belong to the city?
My understanding is, other than law enforcement, we don't offer any firearms.
So
they
somebody
would be
can carry
personal.
their personal firearm while they're working in a bare area.
That is my understanding. Is that correct, John?
I mean, the city's a bare area.
True. But the offices are prohibited basically from carrying firearms.
So what would the safety protocol be when somebody is working and they have a firearm? They have to go to their home to lock the firearm up and then come back to work? Or, leaving a firearm in a vehicle is not a great idea. So what's the process, the procedure for having a firearm when you're working in a bare area, which is everywhere everywhere you're working? What is the procedure for that?
Well, for one, I can't control personally owned vehicles. It's Alaska, and open carry is legal, having them in your vehicle is legal. But as far as city vehicles, my presumption is that they leave them in the city vehicles when they're inside the buildings, this would be my guess.
That is a very huge liability.
But is that correct, John?
So the only time that we permit our employees to have firearms is when they're going out into wooded areas, not necessarily within city limits. It's when we have 30 miles of transmission line and our crews are in the middle of the wilderness without any buildings or anything like that around, then generally speaking we let them do what they feel is necessary to protect themselves from wildlife.
Do you know if that's specific to your contract or not?
No, it's not specific to our contract.
Councilmember Cease?
So they are not allowed to have it in a building?
Correct.
Yep.
Councilmember Butts, did you have other questions?
Yes, some other questions there too. And I know it's not on our list of projects and everything, but could you give me an update on the Jessie Lee home and where we're at with that?
Sure. I don't see Jackie here yet. I don't know that she's coming or not tonight. So the Jessie Lee, we had R&M do the site study survey. So they have testing engineers. They did the walkthrough. They took all the samples. We have their report back to us. It's going from the draft to the final. Should be done. We have gotten the bill for that. We're going to present that to council as a item on the agenda. And then from there, we'll get direction as to whether we're having a public hearing or, I would tell you that in just glancing through it, it's very thick. It's not, the old one in 2013, things have changed since that time frame, obviously, without coverages. I think the rough estimate, you can't just go in there and mitigate. I think the rough estimate to like build stairs, secure things so it doesn't collapse on people doing mitigation work, roughly you're looking at $800,000 to remove to put in the mitigation to be able to remove just the contaminants. That is not demo, that's just to get the building compliant with the hazard mitigation. The state grant was 1.1 million, so that's roughly leaves 300,000 to 250 for additional activities related to that facility. So we'll get you a presentation. I would prefer that the people that did those analysis and work actually explain those, because having us kind of digest that and explain those questions, it's very detailed. Is that what you're looking for, sir?
Councilmember
And then
Butts?
one more, Madam Mayor, could you give us a status update on the animal shelter relocation?
So that too, it's at the 90% engineering design. That needs to also come back before you. We need to meet with the group. So SOS Pets and the local volunteers have committed that they can raise at least half the funds, is what the number I last heard. I don't know where that sits in the current climate with monetary issues. So we would need to have, again, an item on the agenda or some type of I don't like to keep saying work sessions because I know we have a ton of them on our plate, but to get some of those specific projects detailed and updated to kind of give direction to those money raisers and the benefactors that are going to create that funding mechanism to pay for the facility. And I think, as they get into that, if it's easy to find the money, it might stay where it is, or it might get larger if they have additional funds, or it might diminish in some of the scope if we don't have the funds to do that. So and then we also have the third project that we're trying to bring to you, and that's the heat loop project, and that's kind of the same type of a presentation analysis. Those are the big three that are really pressing on this year's budget, that are grant related or have short time frames. And then from there, we would go into the bigger CIP long range, kind of look at the budget. But those three are the most pressing projects that we have.
Councilmember Stevens?
Can you repeat those numbers for the Jessie Lee home?
Roughly the number.
The grant, how much did we get?
1.1 million, roughly. I mean, there's some,
Okay.
I don't know if it's 20,000 or, but roughly it was 1.1 million.
Okay, so that's where you got that, there's like 250. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
So I have a follow-up to your question. So Jessie Lee, SOS Pets with the animal shelter and then the heat loops, which we're not really having work sessions right now. The numbers are going up where we could consider holding them again, but did you want to just start bringing one a piece to upcoming council meetings, or?
I think that would be the most palatable way to get those in and get them done sooner than later.
Councilmember Bacon?
Is it possible to have them at other venues to have better social distancing rather than here, like at the Ray Building or
I'll look to
the
the
library?
clerk. Did you want to talk about maybe work sessions in the future?
That we're still under an indoor state mandate, no greater than 20, and outdoor, we can go up to 50.
Yeah.
So that's considered, that just remains a consideration, as well as the ability to live stream it or record it and furnish it later to the public that can't be in attendance. Those are just things we have to work through.
But I think we want to present you with like more tangible dollar figures so that you can make more of an educated guess as to where some of these may be going.
Okay. Councilmember Butts?
And then I would ask also too, as a recommendation, to when we do have the issue about the animal shelter, we invite the president of SOS Pets there too that night so we can answer questions.
Sure. And we're close to having these almost ready to either do a resolution or some type of format where we have it presented.
Sounds good. Councilmember Singa, did you have any comments? I can't tell if I was ignoring you or not.
No, you weren't.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments on the city manager's report or questions?
No, the only thing that I did want to ask was in reference to the Boys and Girls Club for summer program. I haven't heard or seen anything in regards to that.
The last update I had from their executive director is that they were aiming to restart programs, I believe June 1st. I can follow up with a confirmed date on that. But I think that was their aspirational goals, to start some sort of programming back up.
Which I did see on Open Alaska that they do have they do have an informational on those summer programs, but that's one I haven't
I
read
think
through.
right now it's outdoor only.
Outdoor only. Oh, thank you, Councilmember Grants.
I have one
Councilmember
more than,
Sis.
on the harbor, I know nobody's here for that. I feel pretty stupid when this down here, it says the U.S. Coast Guard contracted with the harbor about the location and designs for the new FRC. What is that?
So that's the fast response ship.
Okay,
A lot of
thanks.
people call them cutters, and
Okay,
that is tentatively going to be at SMIC rather than on this side, just due to size.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any comments to the city manager's report? I know we don't, next is other reports and announcements. I know we don't have a city attorney's report on this agenda. Did you have any comments or anything to report?
No, I did not.
Thank you.
Is there a reason why you're here? I mean that very respectfully. This is not a scheduled visit from the attorney, so I don't know why.
I appreciate that. I think given that there were some questions about how to resolve some issues that might come up with executive session and who can attend and who should attend, and that there were some personnel issues on the agenda tonight, that was one of the reasons for my appearance. And I did confirm with Mayor Terry this morning about coming for some of those reasons.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other reports and announcements. There's no further presentations. Next on the agenda is public hearings, ordinances for public hearing and enactment. Madam Clerk, for ordinance 20005, would you read the title into the agenda?
Ordinance 20-005 is adopting Seward City Council Temporary Emergency COVID-19 Regulation Number 1 entitled Pickup Parking Spots and authorizing business owners to designate up to 2 curbside pickup parking spots for their customers during the state of emergency arising from COVID-19.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I'm the one that put this on the agenda, so I'm going to turn over to a public hearing. We need a motion. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Okay, is there a motion?
Yes, I move for the enactment of ordinance 20-005.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Sorry, this mask is,
Yeah.
I'll blame it on the mask. So, Madam Clerk, normally we have city manager, the manager provide the report, but since I put it on the agenda, I don't know if the city manager wants me to speak to it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an item that we're.
Yep, so the ordinance was for introduction last week, and this week it's on for public hearing and enactment. Basically, what it does is during the time where there is the emergency response, sorry, I'm trying to find it in the agenda. During the time there is an emergency response, that we allow for pickup spots for the restaurants, and I'll just read the crux of it right here. So all businesses authorized to provide goods under the state of Alaska health mandates may designate up to 2 pre-existing on-street parking spaces for exclusive use by its customer to pick up goods offered by that business. And even though restaurants are open to 25% and then now we're on the 50%, I would want to keep this moving forward for 2 reasons. One, because the governor has already said if there's a resurgence in cases, he's going to start pulling back, and it's hot spots or within certain industries. So I want to make sure those pickup spots are still available for restaurants, even though it looks like we're going down that way. The second reason is I think there's a lot of people that would still prefer to stay out of those locations. So the better we can do at allowing people to social distance or receive goods in a separate way where they're not being exposed if they don't feel comfortable, then that just helps those businesses, it helps those people protect themselves, and then also helps those businesses, continue earning revenue, which we need our businesses to earn revenue. We need people to be employed in this town. And this developed because I was asked by some restaurateurs to help make this take place. And in my opinion, as we move forward with this pandemic, knowing that there's so many unemployed people in Seward and so many businesses that are struggling, anything that we're able to do at these businesses' requests that does not have impact to other people, that we should try to do. So I don't know, before we open up for public hearing? Should folks ask me questions, or should I open up? Okay, so I'll open up for public hearing, ordinance 2020-005.
Madam Mayor, we have no public hearing.
Okay, great, I'll close public hearing. So now if there's discussion. Councilmember Cease?
I think it is a great idea. It's not every place that's going to be without parking, but there's so many of them downtown that people just park on the streets. And I think it's a super big idea.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councilmember Buckland?
I think it's a great way that we can help some of our businesses deal with the challenges that they're currently facing during the pandemic. And I appreciate it. That's good.
Councilmember Osinga?
I just had a question about who is going to designate these spots? Who's going to pick the spots out?
So that's a great question. So within here, the businesses themselves may identify. So, and they're also allowed to put a sign up. So part of this is it's not up to the city to expend any, the city doesn't have to put up the signage, the city doesn't have to designate. If the businesses don't want to designate, then they're not obligated to. And also the city's not responsible for any damage or liability arising from the use of. So our police force won't have to be down there ticketing. Like, the businesses will be in charge of their own spots and regulating, doing all the maintenance, putting up a sign. And the good news is this will sunset as the mandates go away. So at the end of this is not going to be adopted into code, so it won't continue once we're no longer operating under these conditions.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the city attorney did look at this, and this is another thing. So this is regulation number 1. So this is the avenue that council can use if there's different mandates that we want to put in place, or different items that we ourselves want to help with, either regulating changing city code during this time of pandemic. Are there any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk, could we call for a vote, please?
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 20-005. McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Osinga?
Yes.
Buckland?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That ordinance is enacted.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is 8 unfinished business items for reconsideration, resolution 20-034. So I have already been ruled to have a conflict of interest. So I'm passing the gavel over to the Vice Mayor, and I'm stepping off the dais.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, I suppose it's appropriate to read the title and description of this before we,
Happy to.
would you, just for the public?
Resolution 20-034 is authorizing submission of a joint application with the Alaska Railroad Corporation to the U.S. Department of Transportation Port Infrastructure Development Program grant program for expansion of the Alaska Railroad Terminal Reserve Freight Dock and extension of Port Avenue.
Okay, thank you. So there's been a motion to reconsider, or it's been put on our agenda for reconsideration. I need a motion to reconsider resolution 20-034 and a second.
I'll make a motion to...
Councilmember Buckland.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. At this point, we can have discussion, but the discussion has to be only about whether to reconsider or not to the pros and cons of the resolution. So, is there discussion?
So I'll speak to my motion.
Councilmember
first.
Buckland.
The reason why I brought it up for reconsideration was the fact that the comments, I guess some had gotten lost, or all the comments weren't read, and that's, for whatever reason, that's what I thought. Also, after that, I had also thought that I may not have had all the information about making this decision, and after some feedback from the public, I felt that it was imperative to bring this back to get more information so that the public and the council can make a more informed decision.
Okay. Is there other discussion about whether or not to reconsider this resolution?
No.
Councilmember Cease.
I know we haven't talked about a work session, and that's a terrible word to think about, but there are so many people out there that are so against not having a say-so in it. I think that it is, like with the union, et cetera, I would think that that would be something, a work session, to decide if this, maybe I'm not lying.
Well, we're talking about whether or not to reconsider at this
Well,
point. So
that's why I think we should
decide to if we vote to reconsider, then we can discuss the resolution itself. And at that point, you can bring that up. Any other comments about whether or not to reconsider? Yes, Councilmember Kreis.
This may be better if we do decide, but if we vote to reconsider, what impact does that have on the grant that was awarded?
We will be discussing the resolution and you know,
will
we'll
there be a
either.
timeframe that's missed to get monies, or will the city lose out on that opportunity?
We'll have to, if we vote to reconsider, we could probably ask someone about the deadlines on that, or it may be within the resolution. But once again, we just need to discuss whether or not to reconsider. Councilmember Baclan.
Before we vote on this, I would just like to urge all the council members, if they, to reconsider this, and if they know exactly what this project is doing, 100% environmentally, to reconsider. We have not, I feel we have not been presented with all the information about this project.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments about reconsideration? So in voting for, about reconsideration, it requires a 2/3 vote to pass. This is for the public more than anything. And so with only 6 of us voting, because Mayor Terry had to recuse, it will require 4 votes to reconsider to pass. Just so everyone knows. Madam Clerk, would you call for the vote? And this is just voting on whether or not to reconsider.
Voting to reconsider Resolution 20-034. Hosenga?
No.
Cease?
Yes.
Baclan?
Yes.
Lutz?
No.
Kreitz?
No.
McClure?
No.
That motion has failed. The resolution stands as it was approved on April 27th.
Okay, so there you have that, and I will be passing the gavel and its little base back to Mayor Terry.
Next on the agenda, under new business, that resolution has been approved under our consent agenda. 9B, other new business items, discuss sending a letter of support for the Alaska Climate Change Planning Cohort, and that's also me. So the Port and Commerce Advisory Board, and I believe also Councilmember Baclan, have been tracking, well, the Port and Commerce Advisory Board has been tasked by the Seward City Council to work on a climate action plan. Other communities around the state are doing the same. An Alaska Climate Change Planning Cohort has developed within all these communities, and this item is solely asking for a letter of support. There's no funds being obligated. There might be fiscal ramifications in the future, but we don't even know what those will be until this grant application moves forward. We provide our support. We're in this cohort, and then it'll come back for us for final vote if we want to participate and what the monetary ramifications will be. The Port and Commerce Advisory Board did take this up at their meeting this last Wednesday, and they voted in support of this. And then I'll also turn it over to Councilmember Baclan if you have any additional comments or.
At this point, it's just a letter of support. They're not asking for any funds, as you said. But mostly this program would be funded by grants, and they're looking for participation to apply for larger grants. So adding our name onto this would be a positive thing, and it would get more buy-in so that they could apply for better grants rather than smaller grants. And would help us get onto a little more sustainability without and getting help without having to spend the funds doing it by ourselves. So if we could get a little help, it would take strain off the administration, off of some of the nonprofits, but also give support to administration and the nonprofits as well by having a specialist or it's actually a company that they were looking at to help hire. So.
And so what we would have a vote on is on page 35 is the letter that we would send. And so before I make a motion to send the letter, I just wanted, so that we're not stuck to just talking to the letter itself, is to see if there's any questions or comments from the council in general. Okay, then I'll make a motion that the city of Seward participate in supporting the proposal for the climate action cohort and send a letter that's drafted on page 35 of the packet.
I'll second that.
So I don't know if there's any questions with the letter or if there's any comments.
Ooh, can I add something?
Yeah.
I'd just like to say, at the last cohort meeting, I think that the clerk and Councilmember Bachlan and I were all there.
Oh, good.
And Mayor Berkowitz spoke about it, and he had like talking points. So it was very articulated, and I think that that group that's looking to work with the city is very polished, and it's a positive in many facets. And I think it's a great project. I definitely want to encourage our participation, and it's hard with the travel and everything, but I think it's an extremely worthwhile project.
Good, thank you. I'm glad you were able to make that. I didn't realize that. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the motion to send a letter of support. Osenga?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Bachlan?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
So we will draft that letter of support for the mayor's signature.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is other new business items. 3, discuss the city rates for RV camping. Councilmember Bachlan.
I put this on the agenda because I had attended one of the chamber check-ins with the local lodging. There was a few concerns, and they actually made quite a lot of sense. One was that we're switching over to an online platform. Now, a lot of the times the outside providers benefit from the fact that we get full, and then they go out and they say, okay, well, you got to go to these other places and you can get a campground out there. But if they're switching to online and they see that Seward's full, without showing any other references to say, oh, there's these other places as well, are we scaring away business by saying, oh, Seward's full, oh, I don't want to go there, the campground's full. But are there other campgrounds? How many other campgrounds do we have? So, you know, ideally, we would want all of those people to come here. We want them to come here, spend money here. Even though they're staying out of town, they're still going to come into town. They're going to go to the restaurants, they're going to do those things. The other thing was the pricing. And this makes a lot of sense, and I don't want to take any action here or take too much time. And I would just like to see if the Parks Department would like to reach out to some of the local businesses, see what some of the other local businesses say about pricing, because we have a very specific target demographic that the Chamber has spent a lot of money to find out. And that target demographic is the people who are going to come here, they're going to bring their $100,000 RV, they're going to go to the shopping, they're going to do all these things, and that's what they're looking for. And they're looking for other places that, well, you know, they might charge a little bit more, but they're bringing the revenue. Also, increased PPE and cleaning procedures, we're obviously going to see that. We're going to have to take a hard look at that and what our numbers are going to be from that. Social distancing the campgrounds, so the prices should reflect that, I feel. Also, excuse me, thinking about the campground and kind of like what, now like looking towards the future, I would like to see the campground pulled out of our general fund and put into an enterprise fund. That way we can now manage and see how much are we subsidizing or not subsidizing or making from the campground, and possibly combining that with the parking enterprise. I've always been talk about how much money are we putting into the campgrounds, how much money are we subsidizing, especially with our dump stations and water usage. And what I've heard a few people say, and I could ask you now, since the water out on Low Point has been shut off, some people have said, oh, you can get water down by the campground. Is that potable water that's by the dump station? Tyler?
Most of the water that is tap water is potable.
Well, there is potable water, sorry. There is a potable water there, yes.
Yeah, so $5 to fill up a, how many gallon, a gallon water jug that they put on the back of their truck, and they're gonna fill that up. I'm just saying, I'm sure there's other ways that they're looking at it, but, or, RVs traveling all around the state and then dumping it into our lagoon, our sewage, which is putting more strain on our lagoon. I think we need to revisit it, and I've seen quite a few other campgrounds that look like we're a little underpriced at least. So that's just my thoughts, and if anybody else wants to discuss that.
Councilmember Seats?
One thing I would like to see is having the Parks and Rec and with the parking on its own level so that we can see exactly, it doesn't get moved from one to the other. I think that it should have always been on that.
So maybe I'll look to the city manager on how that enterprise fund is set up, and then.
So we track all of the revenues, expenditures, and we can get a detailed report on that. It's not, I don't know that we need to have a separate fund. That just adds to our diversity on the funding. Like the enterprises that we really have are the harbor and the electric utility. Most of the others are just general fund, so Park and Rec, Public Works. Some of it is commingled. So Doug, Public Works Director is like, gee, I do this for the library and this and that, and really kind of just through the general fund it's kind of absorbed. Whereas, like over time, maybe we need to look at facilities maintenance, some other things to put within each department. I know we have a lot of issues with that with like the library, and though we can definitely get you that data if that's what you're looking for, is like what do we spend. Like this summer it's really difficult because we've been holding back on hiring. So our staff we have is severely diminished compared to normal. And they're kind of looking to me to hire some people, but there's really not a ton of people to hire. So we are advertising for some of those positions, and hopefully we get those people up and running. You don't realize how much operational work is associated with running our operations until you start looking at the people doing the work. So yeah, we can definitely get that report to you, and I think going automated really helps to decipher that.
So just to follow up a little bit, so this really is our first year of going automated, which we've talked about that for a number of years. So I think that's awesome that happened. But it's interesting, I didn't think about the overflow. Like, we want people to come to Seward. So maybe there's some things to think about with, even sending them to that page on the chamber website. Or, I know City Manager, you talked about that they, even just recently, maybe you guys have done a study around the state, or you're willing to do another one potentially.
So when Tyler first started, he collected all the data. It may have changed since then, I'm not sure, but the campground operators, I've talked to both of them, they've reached out to me, and obviously they have concerns because I don't really know that we're going to have diminished visitation. I keep hearing this stuff from the borough and the advertising that we expect to have more Alaskans here than we ever have. But if we do have a diminished season, those external operators, obviously they're not in the city, but they are, if they're competing versus us, it's a real thing with them, and I think it's worth having a dialogue and a discussion and looking at, what is the data that Tyler has, and how does it, maybe we are undercharging, and if PEPE, so it's always cover our expenses so that we're kind of at least break even. I know that's not an easy thing to do for the department to say, oh, we're gonna change our rates and everybody's gonna pay more, but I don't think that's gonna diminish our visitation.
Councilmember Kreitz, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as viewing Seward's campgrounds compared to private entities, I think a lot of local Alaskans do utilize Seward, especially in the waterfront, and also the visitors, but that's part of the reason that they come, is that view out there. And I agree with you, putting the private entities on the page if we're sold out is a perfect thing to do, because you want to promote them coming to Seward, because I do fear that if you start raising prices, then they're just going to go over to Homer where they get a similar view. That's what they're looking for. But, you know, also letting them know that we have other availability here. So just, you know, watching the pricing concerns me.
Councilmember Butts?
I waited till kind of now to bring this up and everything like that too. We're about $10 to $15 under what Homer, Kenai, Soldotna, there too. And so I like the idea that we're actually less than they are, because it is more of an attractive, but I do feel that we can have maybe a slight increase, because in most of the campgrounds that I researched, they do not offer Wi-Fi. A lot of them don't offer water stuff against there too. So I realize that some of those camping areas that we do have, we can actually charge a little bit better of a price, I think. Maybe that's something we can look into. Maybe not like the Spring Creek campground. I mean, that's pretty bare bones over there. Some of the others too. But our campsites down there too, and our RV sites there too, I think they're pretty premium. And I'm glad for bringing this up there too. That I think this is something that we can still have a slight increase, but yet not chase away people too, as we start to look at this one too. And and there again too, I'm hoping that on the other side too is, as we get into this summer, I guess one of the question was, is a campground attendant, that's the person that does the trash, clean the restrooms, is that right? So we only have one of those openings for one of those people?
We have multiple openings.
Oh, okay. Because I would like to see that too. It's hard to see some of the things that we looked at, I talked with earlier this week there too. We don't know our unemployment right now. It says our unemployment is 5.4%, but that's last quarter. So we don't know what our unemployment is right now too. But as we start looking at this, and as we start seeing, you know, Sewardites that are unemployed and looking for a job, I think this is a great spot as a campground attendant where we can hire a bunch of people. We can use the money that we're going to be getting from the COVID-19 type of money to hire those people, get those people at least working there too, that might be looking for some type of temporary employment as they work through this one there too. So I think there is some changes that we might be able to look at there too. I don't know if we're looking at a motion to be able to do some of this stuff.
Well, I have a couple, so unless there's further comments, I might just say a couple things. So, you know, the only concerns I have is with the timing, as we're already in the season, if people have already reserved. And then normally when we do change rates, which, you know, usually it's done by resolution, because then there's a rate. So I wonder if tonight we want to direct city administration to bring a resolution back to us, you know, amending the rates, and they can bring what they're going to bring, and then we can, you know, look at it at that time. But I'll look to Councilmember Baclan and we can move forward. I think we could make a motion, but my recommendation would be, it'd be great to have a resolution back with all the different rates outlined, because we do have multiple campgrounds, multiple services. Or we could pick a percentage, you know.
I don't want to say what a percentage is. I'd rather them come back and say, well, this is what we found to be, you know, comparable. I would like the chamber to have some input on it, because they 2/3 of their referrals are to the campgrounds, so they know exactly. I feel like how many people they're sending to what they're sending, you know, and that's first, you know, from Jason and Aisha. So they're saying that exactly all their references are to the campground. So. And they know our target market. They know our value-added tourists. You know, that it goes beyond that into really, you know. So I'll appreciate their input on it, and I think that you would make the right decision on bringing a resolution. I do have one more question though before we move on from that. Does the city pay a bed tax or a sales tax on the campgrounds?
I don't believe camping is included as part of the city fee. It's not like a B&B or someplace that you have an amended lodging. It's like tent camping and RV camping.
So no bed tax on the,
Unimproved.
Not on,
no bed tax on the, on camp spots or anything. Sales tax.
they're supposed to.
Is there PILT?
I believe
Pillman
all,
and lieu of
It's
tax?
calculated in.
I believe sales taxes, we do collect sales tax, that's all, it's calculated on the back end. So sales tax, basically all of our fees across Parks and Recreation, sales tax is taken out on the back end. So it's figured into whatever the upfront price is.
It might be just because we're updating everything, it doesn't say that on the website. So it should probably say the sales tax is included, just so that other businesses know what the total price would be for it, right? So if this is the total price we're paying, minus the sales tax, that's what our price is, right?
All the prices are available on CampSpot.
No, I think what you're saying is I believe our sales tax code requires that you publish your original price, not
that-
including
yes.
the taxes. But we might be paying payment in lieu of taxes because we're a municipality, but I'm not sure. I don't know that. And then I will say, I know you're waiting, Councilmember Cease, but Vice Mayor McClure had her hand up.
Well, I would also like to see, I know that I've been either sitting in the audience or up here during other discussions about changing the rates at the campsites. And I don't recall how long ago it was and when there was such a discussion, but there was quite a bit of negative backlash when they tried to raise the rates several times. So I just, maybe a little historical, and maybe Tyler has that, I'm seeing.
My staff did some research into this. The best research that we have up to is that it was last changed in 2016-2017 budget transmittal letter. And it raised the RV utility site rates from $30 to $40 and the dry camp rates from $15 to $20. That's the most accurate, up-to-date information we have.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cease?
I know that you want it on a budget and it's on the general fund, but I have gone through the expenses and the income, and it doesn't come out to what they've told me before as a total.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's easy enough to just change, I would think, a number as to your account number that goes to it. You only change the first two numbers, your last numbers are all the same. That then we could have it as an actual.
Sure.
So, Councilmember Butts.
And then just one more thing to follow up with what you're saying too, is that some of the research that I looked at too, I believe it was Casa was the only one that has not changed their rates for camping in the last 3 years. So everybody else on the peninsula has increased their camping fees.
I would add that, so the same person that reached out to Councilmember Backlund reached out to me. I actually had a conversation with them. I kind of pushed him at Tyler. I do know the Homer spit $70, and I do know that the seasonal rates for our KOAs is 50 and 55 off season, 60 and 65 on season. We charge $10 for tent camping, $20 for unimproved, and $40 for the improved sites. We do not have sanitation, which I believe both of them do. I could be wrong. I know at least one of them does. So it's a discussion. I think if they want to have a discussion, it would probably be most suited to have the chamber director, the interested parties get together and maybe have Tyler and staff, and if I'm available, or if Tony or the mayor or somebody else wants to go, I think it might be good to have that dialogue before we just bring you back something to present.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that. I don't want to push it.
I'll look to you, Councilmember Backlund.
I guess I don't know what disseminates what's a rate from like a fee, because certain fees are determined by administration and certain now I'm getting through this are dictated by the council. So that's interesting to me that was separated from, and why is that separated rather than other fees that can change through administration. So maybe a clearing up of all of that would be great, but
Well, I think part of it is we've adopted a budget with those rates, but I could be mistaken with.
Oh, because it has
I
a
mean, it's part
forecast.
of, yeah, it's part of the budget revenue that we've adopted, but, you know, I'm sure we can.
And I don't want to confuse you by adding a tariff piece. So the tariff is set and,
John, do we have campground fees in a tariff?
no, it's in a fee schedule.
Yeah, it's in a fee schedule.
There's a pump station fee, I believe.
Is in the tariff. Is in
I'm
the
not aware
tariff.
of any camping tariff.
Okay.
It's only the utilities use the tariff.
Yeah. So again, let's round up and look around at the wishes of the council. Looking for something to be brought back to us after administration has a chance to meet with chamber and businesses. Is that, do we need to have a vote on that, Madam Clerk, or?
Only if you wish.
Councilmember Baclaw, or we, it seems like that's
I
true.
check if anybody has an objection.
Okay, great, thank you. Next on the agenda is ongoing city project and goal list. I don't know if anyone has any comments on what's included in our packet. We did have an earlier discussion on those larger projects. And also city clerk's report on public record request March 2nd through May 2020. That's pages 78 and 79. Any questions or comments to council? Next, oh yes.
I just want to know, have they started out here now on this,
I believe we awarded the bid
to Harmon?
to Hammond. I think it's Hammond.
Hamilton.
Oh, Hamilton, not Harmon.
Oh, I thought Harmon.
I thought Harmon got it.
Harmon.
Okay.
Okay,
So we have awarded, they have not begun yet.
when are they going to plan on starting then?
I believe Doug executed the contract, so it should be any time. I'll find out for you on that.
You don't know, Doug, when they're starting?
Oh,
That's-
that's
Oh, that's John, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm still on to it here.
I do know that we've done the locates for the project, so the locates are due within 30 days.
So they should be starting shortly.
Good, because it was a mess out here the other day. Okay.
Any other comments? So Madam Clerk, we're down to citizen comments, and just to clarify, so I know we had a lot of citizen comments come through the email, and the ones that you read at the meeting, what's outlined in our packet is folks can always submit citizen comments to be distributed by you, but if they wish them to be read at the council meeting, they were asked to identify their comments read aloud, or they could be called on the telephone. So if we got comments that weren't read, it was because they asked that they didn't specifically say read out loud.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Were there any citizen comments for the second period?
Yes, we do have some. We have 4 citizens who requested to make comments at the second portion.
Okay, and they have 5 minutes per.
Correct.
Yep.
And the first 3 are call-outs.
Okay, thank you.
First person is Linda Paquette.
Hi.
Hi, Linda, it's Brenda Ballou.
Hi.
Hi, you are back on speaker with council, and you have 5 minutes for citizen comments.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and city council members, as both a city commissioner and a local citizen, I wrote to the city manager last June and shared my concerns about the apparent bad fit that he was for the city after a disastrous meeting that he and I had had. We met at the lagoon after weeks of the city manager refusing the less formal invitation I had extended. He was new to town, and I had extended an Alaska welcome to him, and he just absolutely rejected it multiple times. I asked the clerk to provide you all a copy of that letter. It was CC'd to council at the time, but no action was taken. One of the most important takeaways from that encounter to me was to discover that not a single council member would admit to having directed the city manager to investigate councilperson Cowsley. There have been many other undesirable events over the past year, and as you have heard from citizens, there are many that are unhappy. To this day, beyond the briefest of head nods, the city manager does not speak to me I'm certain his disrespect for boards and commissions hasn't changed either. You heard from Ms. Grande this evening that his treatment of her hasn't changed in the past year, and nothing about the lagoon has changed. It's difficult to understand how the firing of the finance director could be legal. Obviously, there's a probationary period, but how was it handled? Was she given proper number of warning? It seems an awfully tight timeline because she hasn't been here that long. So if HR is doing the right job, there should be steps that would have to be documented. And how could a new finance director fail so terribly in such a short period of time? She was a credentialed professional. Was she asking questions and expecting people to do their jobs the way Jeff Bridges did when he was here as interim? And if you'll remember, people were unhappy about that too. But that's a good thing. Employees don't like change, but change is a good thing. And change is supposedly what you were looking for when you hired a new city manager. So firing the finance department head had actually been something that people were happy with. Citizens really thought, you know, it really built trust. They like him and they like the Parks and Rec guy. So I don't know, all of a sudden it's like all the wheels have fallen off. I've been told you've received letters from the department staff saying that they're much happier now that the finance director is gone. So that should be a real huge red flag to you. Since when do you fire department heads because employees are unhappy? What kind of inconsistency is this? You've had years of complaints from employees in the electric department and massive departures from employees there. And you do the complete opposite in the finance department in a couple of months? Come on, that inconsistency, really, it opens up to all kinds of liabilities, I would think. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of management style is this? After listening to the city manager tonight, I will repeat what I said earlier. It's just as if the faces have changed, that you're right back to where you were 2 years ago. Your previous manager could have been speaking. And don't let him gaslight you that it's Seward. We know it's not Seward because Mr. Bridges showed us it wasn't Seward. There's a sickness in that building, and it has to be addressed through the city manager's office, or you have to change the style of government. You cannot let city government continue to be ruled through friendship and cronyism. It's not right. So I'll also make this statement. I never once called anybody anything. All I did was remind you of the words that council used at the time about what they were looking for in a CM. During his comments, the city manager started talking about the clerk doing something wrong about emailing, and I wrote this sentence, and all of a sudden I'm realizing now talking later in the meeting about the agenda and things going on the agenda, it's like I'm having a flashback. I don't know if I should wish people could be there in the building or we should be grateful we're not all in the building. This meeting has been like a bad memory lane. What do you do now? What? Sure deserves the best. Are you sure? You know, you have time to deal with this now. I just really ask you to deal with this because we were making progress. And this, if you don't feel like it's a stroll down memory lane, a bunch of you, then you know, call me crazy. But this is just beyond what I think is acceptable for the city. You guys deserve so much more. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Good night. Next on the list to call out is Casa Grande. It's Brenda.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Brenda.
You are on speakerphone in council chambers, and you
Great.
have 5 minutes for comments.
Okay. 1 sec. Okay. I just wanted to call in and say that I appreciate every one of you, and I understand the heaviness that some of you have to go home and deal with at night after these meetings. I understand the courage it takes to show up to these meetings and listen and speak. I am grateful for every single one of you. Thank you for your service to Seward, and I hope that each one of you can hear and feel the gratitude that myself and the citizens of Seward have for every single one of you. Although many of you may think your job is, or though many may think your job is flattering, I know firsthand this is by far the most difficult job each and every one of you will ever endure, and you are barely even getting paid for it. First, I'd like to comment on the city campground fees. I was the one that anticipated the rate increase in 2016, and it's most definitely time to increase those fees again. There are local business owners that are having to compete with the city of Seward, and I personally feel that the city of Seward campgrounds are by far the overall best spots in the entire world. If I was on council today, I would suggest the fees be raised to $150 plus the 11% bed tax, as these are nightly rentals, such as my business. Why should the city be any different from the private sector? Now is the time to increase the city revenues, and what a perfect opportunity. Let's look to charging the city campgrounds a demand on and increasing the charge for the sewer dumping as well while we're at it. I feel that the cost of camping in the Seward City campgrounds doesn't even begin to cover the cost of city infrastructure that supplies those spots. I've traveled the entire world, a lot of the world, not the entire world. And Seward is the most beautiful place in the world. Let's take a business risk that the city of Seward loves being, since the Seward city loves being in Seward. I would like to take this opportunity to complete the parts of my Seward citizens' comments that were not able to be read in the beginning of the meeting. Continuing from my beginning comments, for the sake of Seward's reputation and healing our community, terminate the contract with the city manager tonight and let HR Gov recruit a new manager. In the meantime, consider appointing immediately the mayor as the city's interim city manager until an interim manager can be hired. Councilmember McClure and Vice Mayor can act as our mayor, and I believe that she will do a fantastic job. I am thankful for each and every one of you, and I know the decisions you need to make this evening are not going to be easy. And it is time, Seward. Please choose what is best for the citizens of Seward and business owners of Seward this evening, and leave friendship at the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Rissy, and good night.
Madam Clerk, did you say you had one more?
I have another call to make, and then I have comments to read.
Okay, thank you.
The next person to call is Jackie Wild.
Hello.
Jackie, it's Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
You are on speaker in council chambers, and you have 5 minutes.
All right. I am just going to read my whole story to you guys tonight. Mayor and council, I don't know if it's cabin fever, COVID quarantine, but tonight I want to speak to the citizens of Seward that are listening. I want to speak for my coworkers, my friends, my family, and I want to speak as myself that I am also a current city employee. It seems that a few people don't want to see the city heal from its past. They don't want to see Seward as a wonderful, loving community that we know it is. And I want them to understand that it is impossible to heal wounds that are being repeatedly torn by the same repeated behavior of a few people, and it has to stop. People say they are concerned for former employees of the city that have been bullied or wronged. To the people that keep digging at the wound, I know that you think what you've done or do and say is for the sake of transparency, or that certain city employees may deserve it. But I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who deserves to be treated this way. All it has done is reveal your own insecurity, your envy, your resentment, and hate. In trying to assert your dominance, you've proven yourself to be grounded, weak, and cowardly. I've always wondered why one chooses to wrong someone or something so bad that their human inside dies. They stop realizing the right over wrong, good over bad, or about us defines themselves. By judging people for such superficial reasons, you have exposed yourself to even a greater judgment. You unknowingly or knowingly give out some of your own dirty image of yourself. You call people bullies, and yet you fail to see the excessive insecurity in your actions. What about this, to quote a former council member, former employees who have been bullied or wronged and citizens whose utility rates have become unaffordable must unite. Whether you live in the city or in surrounding areas that affect you, speak now or forever enjoy your dysfunctional city management that causes unnecessary utility or attorney bills and constantly increases city living and utility rates. I want to ask you, how much money has the city spent over the last 3 years paying attorneys to work on personal issues caused by council members for former employees to the city? What about the current city employees, the ones that the council worked so hard to make our workplace safe? The council hired a city manager a year ago to build a team, and that's exactly what he's doing. A part of an employee, a team that makes every day come to work, that's being a part of better Seward and making our city safe. You, council, and mayor have a thing in front of you tonight, this evaluation of the city manager. I just want to point out your rules of procedure, Rule 16, the evaluation of appointed officials. The purpose of providing periodic evaluations of the city attorney, city clerk, and city manager is to give the employee timely feedback on his or her performance and to identify areas in which he or she is doing well, along with areas in which improvement may be needed. Evaluation should lead to positive action. To clarify and strengthen communication between the employee and the council as it relates to their respective expectations of their current position. To serve as a method of gathering data relevant to personal decisions. Statement of council's responsibility. Evaluating the performance tonight of the city manager is a significant responsibility of you, the city council. Conducting an effective evaluation is hard work, but it does not have to be a bad experience. With a clear procedure and open lines of communication, chances are good that the experience will result in more productive workmanship relationships. Please take into effect that everything that is happening, we are all under stress, and you as a council are the ones that we look to for leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Good night. The last comment that was submitted in writing was submitted by Susie Towsley. I'm not sure I'll get through it all. I am writing this email and requesting that it be read out loud closing comments at tonight to formally, publicly call upon Seward City Council to please do your duty and immediately terminate the city manager, the assistant finance director, and the electric utility director manager. The former finance director should be reinstated if she will come back, or hired as a contractor to finish the audit. A full two-tier forensic audit should be performed on the general fund and the electric department at very least. Nothing short of these actions will get Seward to the place of healing and transparency that is so very desperately and obviously needed. The people of Seward who pay these salaries deserve at least competence and professionalism. City Hall continues to hemorrhage money and very little actual work of the people appears to be getting done. Leadership is vacant and weak if present at all. The firing of the new finance director so early in her time with the city is inexcusable and could not have been done in compliance with the law. This firing exposes the city to yet more liability, which always comes with expensive lawyers' fees. City manager has completely and utterly failed on a number of levels. Coming to Seward, I will list just a few of which I am aware, though any one of these alone should be cause enough for immediate termination. Attacked and lied to and about a sitting council member immediately upon arriving here repeatedly. He admits to having taken unilateral direction from specific council members in his actions outside of a meeting and without a vote. He ignored the closing of the Silvertip maintenance station on the Seward Highway, which impacted our community negatively this winter. He ignored specific council members' requests for information and refused meetings with specific constituents that he does not like. He foot-dragged and dallied on the airport project for months and then thought it appropriate to push his own opinion over the findings and expert opinions of the airport committee that had been seated by council. He childishly stormed out of a council meeting while the public was speaking. Though earning a healthy $12,000 a month, the city manager has failed and proven himself to be an impotent manager and poor leader. Please note that last year upon hiring the city manager, the council and city manager agreed to zero severance package and a full 2-year warranty wherein either party could agree to part ways for up to 2 years with no cause needed. And GovHR will repeat the hiring process at no cost to the city. There is 1 year left on this agreement. The electric department continues to experience complete meltdown. Our electric director told our Port and Commerce Advisory Board last year that because of unique geography, electrons work differently here in a PACAB meeting, while arguing against alternative energy in Seward. This is utter nonsense. The deputy finance director appears to lack both the judgment and the experience to be left in charge of the city of Seward's $14 million budget at such a sensitive time. I do not fully understand how the information that I have received in response to a FOIA request regarding salaries could have changed. The way it was submitted in 2019 or 2020, now in May 2020, have come back with different numbers for some figures that should not have changed. Are these numbers changing depending upon who is in charge of finance that day? 3 different sets of numbers should not come back with the same questions asked at different times. The importance of FOIAs as a check on our local government cannot be overstated. This seems like yet another massive liability. GovHR should be engaged immediately to find a suitable interim manager. The ratepayers and taxpayers of the city of Seward deserve to have peace and enjoy equitable access to local government and City Hall, not the circus that is employed now. Seward deserves a professional, steady executive at the helm of our ship. Please do the right thing and hold accountable the employees who have created and are profiting off the latest circus at Seward City Hall. Thank you for your service. I know it's hard in your seats tonight. Please take this all into consideration and do what is right for Seward, for working families and our employees, our ratepayers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is that the last citizen comment?
That is, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is council and administrative comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start with Councilmember Kreitz. No. Don't have any comments. Thank you. Councilmember Osenga?
I just got a couple things to say. One, I'd like to say thank you to all the people that are volunteering with delivery of food and visitations and such in town. I ran into one, and it was just really great to see that. In sharp contrast to that, it saddens me that these comments are as visceral as they seem to be, and I don't even know what to say except for that it saddens me to hear these kind of comments being stated. I personally don't know that we are in a bad place. I have not seen us being in a bad place, and I think everything is going well. It just blows my mind. Saddens me.
Thank you, Councilmember Sarah. Councilmember Butts?
Yes. First off, they're getting to. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight too, and listening to all this, and thank everybody that's out there that have sent in comments, emails, or called me or anything else like that. I know this was kind of a lot of things there that we were kind of dealing with here tonight too. I wanted to just address a couple little comments that were made this evening there too. One specifically about a company working on the docks down there too. Alaska Logistics does actually hire local people. They have a fairly good sized crew of local people that they hire. When they bring in a tug and barge, they bring in a crew of 5 to 7 that's on the barge, and that's what they help to unload that. They do not bring in 20 to 25 people from another state to actually unload and load the barge. So they do have lots of, actually one of our former council members has been retired from there too. So it is a lot of local hire from there too. So I think they're a great company. They do a lot of work here too. They do have a lot of different things that they're doing throughout the city. Also, I just wanted to make one other comment too. Somebody had made a lady had made a comment that she had asked me if I had ever talked to the city manager about investigating another city council member. She has never ever asked me that question ever. And so I don't know where she said that she has asked every council member that question. She's never asked me that one too. Once again, thank everybody for being part of the solution. I think this is great. I think people are working well out there too. Everybody's getting out, going for a walk. Please pick up a little garbage on your walk. That's the best thing I say. We saw last weekend. We all saw that people are starting to get out. People are starting to show up to Seward. I think that's great. I think we want to make sure that people are coming here but doing it safely, and people are coming here and obeying the mandates, things like this here too. If you are traveling from out of state, please make sure that you are following the governor's mandates. Wash your hands, as always. That's what I'm saying. One other quick thing there too, as we start to look at this, and I'm hoping to maybe next council meeting have a chamber report of an update of what we're going to be looking at for the 4th of July. If there are going to be any activities, how we're going to be able to try to work those activities or anything else like this or too. So if we could get them in here for our next meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
Like everybody else, I just want to thank everybody for trying to be safe and washing hands. I'm not very well at good wearing gloves, but I try when I'm out. Got in a mask, I can't hardly breathe with one. Needs my glasses up, so don't try to read. I want to also thank our attorney for being here today for our executive sessions. And I just want to say that Tom Clemens, I feel for them up in Anchorage. He's going through quite a bit, and he won't be back until the first part of June at least. And so if anybody has any, Brenda did put it in there, an address up there where they're staying, and that would be nice if they could hear from a few more people in town, even if it's a whole group signing it. That would be nice for them. Other than that, I think I'm done.
Thank you. Councilmember Buckland?
I just wanted to say, first of all, our condolences to the Kinney family. I saw Kathy many times while I owned Hamajang, going to Three Bears maybe 3 to 4 times a day in the summertime, very busy. And she was just always a delight to see, and I will definitely miss her very much. The people of Nome have lost their mayor, Richard Benville, who the city manager and the mayor and Cheryl and I got to meet at the last AML conference in the winter, and he was just an amazing person and a beautiful personality, and our thoughts go out to the city of Nome and his family. I just want to remind everyone that the census is still out there for everyone to take. I've been working with Aisha at the chamber and Brenda and we're gonna try and get some laptops outside somewhere where we can get people who can't use the internet to get possibly to do their census, and we can sanitize it and social distance, so look out for that. Councilmember Butts mentioned about the 4th of July. The chamber is starting a 4th of July committee. I think they're still taking people's volunteer if they want to be on the board. And that's gonna, maybe you might want to volunteer, Councilmember Butts. But they're looking for anybody to help to see what the city really wants to see on 4th of July. And I want to thank everyone for their comments. It was a lot to read today before the meeting and all of the comments, but I appreciate everyone who took the time to write them out. A lot of very passionate people, and you know, we are a body of 7, and there's an election. So if you want to make a difference here, run and be a part of it and write letters and, you know, participate in the process. And that's what the best thing to do is. So thank you for Brenda for helping us get this all set up, and thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor McClure?
Okay, well, a lot has already been said. Condolences to the Kinney family. I miss Kathy a lot. It's the passing of, and Seward. I think we've got a really good city council sitting here, and I just feel the need to point out that we all are doing the best we can to make decisions for the people that elected us and all the people of Seward. So, if we're sitting here and you might not agree with what we come up with, we're doing our best, and that's all we can do, I think. And I think we've got 7 very sincere people here. I want to mention that the plan, I don't remember what it was called, but the city manager's plan it's not the reopening plan, but it's the
Community Outbreak Rules and Plan.
Thank you. So there's this, I read through it today, and there are some corrections and things, but it's a work in progress, but we need something so that we know exactly what to do if such and such happens. I mean, if there's a big outbreak, we know what to do. And we're really being proactive in that sense, and people should know that this will be coming out. And I just kind of want to remind people that the best way you can get through life is just be kind to each other.
Thank you. I just have a few comments. I want to also add my condolences to the Kinney family and their loss. That will definitely be felt in the community, and also to the city of Nome for their outstanding mayor that's just been many years, just really a legend and an icon in the state. I wanted to share both with the council and the public that I did email Senator Machicki, Representative Ben Carpenter, and I included Mayor Pierce in the email, asking them to look into the situation where an accused murderer of a local youth was charged with murder 1 and most recently let out on bail of $5,000, which is really egregious and just not the standard practice in the state. And so Senator Machicki did contact me, and he is working with the courts to find out why that happened in Kenai. And my point was, we as a city have put our money where our mouth is, and we budgeted, that might have changed with the situation, but we did budget for an extra police officer. We've gone again and again talking to our representatives that we need law enforcement outside city limits, and for the courts to turn around and just totally negate a situation where we spent months as a community fearful that those murderers were walking around unchallenged. Our police department did a fantastic job and took their time and got evidence that there's no reason that person should be currently out on the street. I'll go from that note to a positive note. I just want to let the community know that I'm very thankful for our local city union. The executive board of our city employee union unanimously decided that it would be in the best interest of the city and all employees to hold off on negotiation until the health crisis is under control. They understand that the community is under a lot of financial stress as a result of this health crisis, and look forward to negotiating with the city in the future. So I just want the community to know that the city employees are vested in the community, and they are neighbors, and they are not blind to the economic situation. They're taking that into account. And then our clerk herself, after her evaluation, have the ability, based on our recommendation, to take a bump to her salary, and she also, realizing the economic situation, asked for that to be postponed. And then finally, I know at the last meeting, it was discussed about Providence and the CHC pursuing funding and grants. I did see an email, I'm not sure that went to all of council, but if it hasn't, I'll get it to the clerk and make sure everyone sees that. I know that they are applying for grant funds, and we'll work with them to provide the information to all of council. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to do that prior to the meeting. And that's all I have. Administration, did you have any comments?
So both finance directors at the clinic and the Providence want to come present their financials.
Okay.
That should be done shortly, so it likely will be in your packet the next meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
I just wanted to say, I'll address lots of those questions I saw in the evaluation, but the budget was approved before the end of the year in compliance with state law. Our budget book is going out to print this weekend. But the audit is nearly finished. I do want to point out that the finance director does not do our audit. If they do, we should get our $100,000 back. And it's by RFP that the assistant finance director put out that this council approved due to cost, not due to any kind of preference as insinuated. And the library bonds are also being refinanced and should be coming back to you shortly. Maybe I need to have the clerk send Ms. Towsley the silver tip letter for like the 23rd time, because I did mail that to the governor and I spoke to him about it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is executive session. So we'll need a motion to go into executive session to evaluate the city manager, and we'll need to specify, yes?
I just want to make sure we're discussing who's going into executive session
Yeah,
before.
so we'll have to include that in the motion. And so I can go ahead and make the motion. I'll motion to go into executive session.
Mayor,
Yep.
could we take a break?
Oh yeah, okay, that sounds, thank you. So let's take an 8-minute break so that we're 9:40 when we start up again. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
I was hoping for that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, I could
So I'll make a motion to go into executive session to evaluate the city manager to include city council and the city manager.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Buckline?
Would Councilmember Kreitz be able to be in here,
Yes.
even though her husband is a city employee?
Vice Mayor McClure, did you want to speak to that?
Well, only just that as part of the evaluation tabulation team, she did an evaluation. So she certainly should be able to speak to her evaluation of him.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a conflict of interest. I'll look to our city attorney.
I don't think there's an actual conflict of interest unless there's some, I mean, I'm not aware of whether there's something that relates to the employment that is part of the evaluation, specifically. So, I'm not sure if there's a conflict. There's not an obvious conflict.
Indirectly or not? Indirectly or directly?
There's not a conflict by virtue of the employment. I don't know if there's any discussion that if there's some conflict that exists because of the employment in some decision or something that's a substantive issue. I'm not aware of that.
I mean, do you need a ruling?
And you don't vote, you don't vote in executive session.
Will come out into the public. I mean, do I need a rule if there's a conflict or not, since the question's been brought up? I mean, was that even necessary?
I know. Typically in executive sessions, you're not voting, and we typically, when there's a conflict, that the person would abstain from voting, but not necessarily, and the discussion possibly if there's personal interest. And again, I'm unaware of any facts, and I don't know that, I'm not saying they don't exist or do exist, that their personal interest is impacted by this executive session.
Okay. So is there any additional discussion?
So you're saying that you don't know any facts of the situation or of the you don't have any facts of the possible conflict? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying a conflict of interest might exist if there was a personal interest that was at stake in the executive session, and I'm unaware of any facts that exists. And I don't know if I don't know if you're suggesting there are facts that suggest there is a personal interest at stake that is personal to her, but I don't know that. And absent some kind of conflict that is a personal interest, it's not a conflict for her to be in executive session. And then, again, in the executive session, you're not voting. Executive session is a confidential discussion. And if that conflict became apparent in an executive session,
We would
you
come
guys
out.
could discuss whether she would need to abstain from voting
Okay.
if there was a vote to be made, if there was a conflict that you found in that discussion.
So the question would be taken up again when we came out of an executive session, we had
Yeah, I think that
potentially a
would be
motion.
appropriate. If there was information that was learned in executive session that identified a conflict that created a personal interest that should prevent her from voting, then that should be taken up before the motion.
So who would be in executive session as of right
So
now?
the motion that is on the floor is all of council and the city manager.
And the attorney.
No,
No.
nope.
Oh,
The attorney is not in the current motion.
oh.
So is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll call for a roll on that motion.
Voting on moving into executive session to evaluate the city manager, Cease,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved. You are moving into executive session at 9:44.
Okay. And then we'll make sure, so everyone needs